Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. It's Nikki here, and today I want to take you through my process of how I make a very simple junk journal using scraps and plenty of junk, including this cardboard box, which is a cereal box, to make a journal that will be built up over the next year. I'll tell you more about that later. But first of all, word of warning number one. I needed to make a journal to fit A5 paper. In other words, an A4 sheet of paper folded in half. So to save a lot of trimming and stuff like that, it was decided that this journal would be in A5 size. That way you just fold your pages in half, and a lot of people taking part in this project have never made a junk journal before. So it's trying to keep things simple. But my word of warning is, when you are cutting a journal cover, if you want it to be a particular size, please do so whilst not chatting to someone sitting at a desk right next to you. As you can see, especially on the right-hand side, can you see the cardboard piece there that doesn't match up with the main cover? I had to cut some extra strips. So what I did, I wasn't concentrating when I first cut it. I threw my A4 sheet of paper down on top of this piece of cardboard, and I drew all around the edge, and I started cutting. And by the time I was almost finished, I went, oops, we have a problem. Guess who didn't, of course, allow for the spine? So we had to do a little bit of surgery here. You must measure your size from the edge of the spine, not including the spine. So it's easy to fix. I've just cut two strips. I've stuck them with sticky tape. And in this case, because of the way I'm going to create this journal, you won't even know it's happened by the time I finished. But it is not the ideal way to do it, especially if you're not planning on, in this case, I'm collaging the cover. If you're not doing that, unless you're going to use a very nice thick piece of cardstock to cover your cover, it's going to be too flimsy. It definitely won't work. But in my case, it's going to be okay. By the time I'm finished, you won't even know I was that stupid. And I mean, this is not my first journal I have ever made. I have made plenty in my few years that I've been junk journaling, and I do know better. But momentary lapse of concentration sort of could have ended up in a disaster. Now, you're probably all saying, well, why didn't you just grab another sheet of cardboard and make a new one? Well, we've just had Christmas, and we had so much cardboard here, and it all got thrown into the recycling bin, which was emptied on Monday, and lo and behold, do you think I had a single cardboard box lying anywhere around the house? Nope. I had to raid the pantry and take my cereal out of the cardboard box so that I could create this cover. Because I don't know when my next Happy Mail is going to come or my next delivery. I don't sort of have much waiting at the moment. So I thought, it's okay. We'll make this work. So as you can see, I have grabbed a glue stick. I have grabbed some scraps, and I'm going to collage the entire cover. And what we're trying to achieve here is an A5 size journal for a Aussie craft group that I am in, that has decided to do this year-long project. But in the past, most of their sort of things they do are like greeting card swaps, ATC swaps, pocket letter swaps. They've never actually done a junk journal style swap before. So we are to create a journal with A5 size sheets of paper. It's to have 3 signatures, and each signature is to have 10 pages, which of course means 20 usable sides, which means 60 sides altogether that you can use. And then from the month of February, each month has a project of ephemera that you have to make, and you might have to make 3 or 4 or 5 of them depending on what the project is that month, and then you are set up with a swap partner, and those items that you have made get sent to your swap partner for them to put into their journal. Now, we had the option to put down our preferences, like, the sort of colours we liked, what sort of things we liked. And I'm thinking, I like cohesion. So I thought, this is such a fun project, but I wanted to sort of look a little bit cohesive at the end. So when I put my comment up, I said I would like to have anything that involves nature. So this journal will have a nature/botanical theme. So I don't care if they send me fish or flowers, leaves, trees, insects, bugs. Like, nature is a very broad subject. So it's not as though, I don't think I'm making it too hard for people, but at least it means by the end of the year, I should have a beautiful journal full of pretty animals and flowers and things like that. And I don't care if they send me all pink flowers or whatever. That's fine, but at least it will still have a cohesive theme. So that is what this project's all about. And obviously, I need a junk journal for it. So I decided this is a great time to get out the scrap box, which is absolutely overflowing, and do my journal cover scrap style. So it's like creating a masterboard cover. It's also a great way, especially as you can see what I've done at the edges. I have stuck my paper down with some of it going over the edge. When I have finished doing all of the front, I will flip it over once it's dry, and then I will glue all along the edges and fold all those edges over. It will make it a little bit stronger, and it will also make it look a lot neater. Now, word of warning number 2. If you love using Uhu glue sticks, which I do, they are definitely one of my favourites. In Australia, they're also very easy to come by, very reasonably priced too. Please do not buy the blue ones. I honestly feel they are a different composition to the normal white ones, and I must be incredibly heavy-handed, but when I use these blue ones, as great as it is that it dries clear and you can see where you've actually glued, I end up with so much rubbish glue spurting out the sides. And once it's done that, it's very hard to actually use that bit, so I end up rubbing it onto a spare piece of paper. So yes, please, especially if we're going to go shopping at the back to school sales, like I love doing for basic supplies like that, because you always get them at such a good price, please don't buy the blue ones. Then they're just not worth the trouble. So the other thing I'm doing here, I am being relatively generous where I cross over one paper onto another. I definitely don't want to make it too smooth, because my whole plan is here, I'm trying to build this cover up and give it some strength. So by being quite generous with the crossover, it's like a double layer going on top of the cardboard box, which is quite flimsy, and it will give it some strength. And then on the reverse side, once everything's dry, I will use something quite heavy duty, because I want this journal to last. I don't want it to be too flimsy. I didn't want to do a fabric cover. I didn't really think that sort of suited a nature journal. So I like doing this masterboard style. I will add some decoration to the front once it's all completed, and I will do another video for that. I'm going to call this journal my Creative Collab Journal. I will create a playlist for it so that you can actually watch its construction as the year goes by. I will do some more decorative things in it, as well as adding all the elements that I receive in the mail. And I think I've never done a project quite like this before, so I was very excited when I could participate. And it will be lovely to see all the different styles that land in your mailbox, and then of course work out a way to integrate them into my journal. And because we were all working with the same size, even though some of the papers that I use, you'll see that shortly, are smaller, I can always use them as a base and stick something on bigger if everything ends up being, a rather large size. But at least this way, we know that everybody's going to be working in that A5 size, so we can make pieces of ephemera that will suit, instead of, little tiny ones or ones that are way too big. So there we go. That's a basic rundown of what this, project is all about. And I thought, look, I'm going to make a simple journal for this. Why not videotape the process? People always seem to ask, how do I create, where do I start? I've never made a journal before. How do I make one that's, not too confusing? And this is my way of making journals. I'm sure, there's plenty of other people that do it the same way, but the collaging is fun. And what I'm going to do very shortly is I will cut out the rest of the collaging in this video. I think you all get the drift. You just need a glue stick and plenty of scraps, and stick away to your heart's content until everything's covered, and then give it a few hours to dry before you do anything else. I think that's probably the most important thing. So, pardon me, here I am back again. I've let it dry for quite a few hours. Flipping it now over, as you can see, I have glued down all the edges so that they're nice and neat. I am a little bit concerned about the strength of the spine. So one of the last little bits of cardboard that I have left, I have cut it to the size just inside the margins of the natural fold that has been created by making the shape of the cereal box. And I'm just putting down a generous slather of glue. When it comes to gluing things like this, I always use Tiger glue. I don't know if you can buy it overseas, but in Australia, I get it from my local cheap shops usually. It's been a little bit hard to get lately, but I have got a full one, so I'm good. But I find it sticks everything. It's not instant dry. You do have a little bit of time to shimmy things around, but by God, once things are down, it's very strong. So I have cut a strip down, and I'm just going to glue that down, press it down nice and firmly, and that way my spine has just that extra little bit of reinforcement, because I was just a bit worried it may be a bit too flimsy to carry 3 signatures. But seeing the signatures are almost the same size as the journal, at least that's not quite so much weight bearing that it has to deal with. Then I am grabbing my glue, and I'm just going to completely cover the front, the centre, and the back, and I'm just going to do this all in one go. If you're using flimsier paper, sometimes it is easier to do it in 3 parts, like do the front, sort of glue it down, then do the spine area, glue it down, and then do the outer edge. But what I use, I found an old manila folder. It had been used and there was writing on the cover, but I didn't need the cover. I just cut the back down to just slightly smaller than the entire size of the journal, and that's what I'm using. It's a lovely thick cardboard. It was wide enough that it could all go down as one piece, because initially I got my scrapbooking supplies out, but of course a 12 by 12 paper is not wide enough, so I would have had to have seams and things like that, and I didn't want seams. This way I was able to put down one solid piece. It's quite thick. And see, with this glue, I can still just shimmy things a little bit before it adheres absolutely solidly. And just like that, my cover is complete. So again, let it dry before you do anything else. The only thing I have to do, of course, is I've still got this little bit of tail hanging out. I am going to just trim it off and get it out of the way for a moment. And what I did do off camera, because I felt it was just it was a slight bit too long, I got my sharp knife, did a couple of tiny scores, and then just peeled off so that that strengthening spine piece matched where my manila folder thing was. So there we go. Now I've got my cover. We've left it to dry. I left it overnight. Coming back the next day to continue on with this. It's now lovely and dry. It's crisp. It's beautiful. I've been around with some glue and tidied up the little bits that I didn't quite get to stick down properly. And now here is my selection of papers that I got. These first 3 pages were out of one of those craft magazines, you know, where they give you papers and things. So they're only quite flimsy, but I thought good for a nature journal. A sheet out of a book. I have dictionary pages, and I don't like word pages that are on their side. I prefer it to be the right way. So I glue 2 together. Now, Christmas brought lots of different deliveries from online shopping. I'm putting all that paper to use. Sometimes this one here was way too long. Now I could have trimmed it down, but instead I'm keeping those flaps. They'll make a great pocket or something down the track. I have deli paper from purchases at our local supermarket. This one here with the little white sticker on it was a gift of flowers. I've even kept the floral sticker on it. I thought that was appropriate. I've grabbed a sheet out of a florist magazine on how to dry flowers. This is from an atlas, but it's just, you know, the list of countries. So these pages I've cut in half rather than put them in sideways because I just don't like words on the side. This is paper from exercise books from Daiso that are craft coloured. I have more dictionary pages. These are a couple of sheets from some eco dyeing that I did with flowers. Colouring book sheets make great pages for journals. I've got 2 different coloured paper bags. I have some coffee dyed paper, more coffee dyed paper. That actually has a hint of gold on it. This one has a hint of bronze. This one's just a very standard coffee dyed paper, and that's what we're using. And then I'm just going to roughly split them into 3 piles, trying to spread the mix over the 3. Like I didn't want to put those 3 coffee stain pages all in one. I'm trying to mess it up a bit so that each one has good variety. I'm not going to get it perfect. There'll be some that have more coffee dyed and some that don't. It doesn't matter. Same here. You know, I didn't want 2 paper bags in one of the signatures. I'm trying to split it up a bit. The pages that have a hint of white, trying to make sure that each one of those, each signature will have some of that whiter colour in it. It doesn't all have to be coffee stained, like, you know. Again, sizes, trying to make sure that each signature had some of these smaller sheets. And the thing is, it doesn't really matter. Like, there are no rules. When you make journals like this, you can do whatever you like. But I find when I flip through the signatures, I love seeing different colours and different sizes. When you open at a particular page, it just gives nice variety, and it's just how I like to make them. Some people probably don't want to do it that way, but I do. And I did decide that the covers of each of my signature were going to be the scrapbook paper, but then I loved that one with the sticker. So here I'll just do a very quick flip through just to show you how I've tried to go dark, light, print, dark, print, light type thing, just so that each page sort of contrasts the other one. It's not a perfect science, but that's how I like to do my journals. I find it aesthetically pleasing, so that's what I've done. Flip straight to the next one. Tried to do the same sort of thing again, dark, light, or print, plain, whatever. Just showing you how I like to make my signatures. And it's amazing how many different colours of craft style paper you can actually have. But it's great. This is a great way to use up, your coffee dyed prints that didn't work out quite as well as you'd liked, or using up wrapping paper. Like, we got so much over Christmas. Now, I didn't keep the cardboard boxes like I should have, but I was an absolute hoarder when it came to wrapping. I grabbed all that stuff, and the amount of tissue paper I've got. Oh, it's heavenly. I have so much now. I'm a very happy girl because it's completely free. I've paid for the products. I've been sent paper, and why not use it instead of just putting it back in the recycling bin? So there's my 3 signatures, and now it's time to sew them in. So the first thing I always do, I create a quick template. You just cut a piece of paper that is basically the width of your spine from the inside of it, so that it doesn't include the bendy bits. You fold that paper in half and in half again. In both directions, you end up with score marks on it, but it shows you exactly where the centre is for each of your signatures. So it makes things simple. I just grab a pen then, and I put a dot where I am going to make my 3 holes. Then I grab this tool. I don't know where I got it from, and it does make a relatively large size hole. But after making so many journals, I find the smaller the hole, the harder it is to get your needle and thread through the holes without accidentally making extra holes. So that is hint number 3, when you create your holes, make them a decent size. Honestly, it makes life so much easier. Now, what I'm doing here is simply pressing down on each of those 3 points. I don't care if I don't get all the way through, because I'll show you what I do next. And it also saves having to press quite so hard at that odd angle. And I also don't want to risk breaking my little tool here, because I think it's a little cheapy I got from somewhere, and it just might crack. So I just mark each of the holes, get rid of my paper, and then I just lift my cover up, and then I press down through it. You may have already gone through, but if you don't, it doesn't matter. It's very easy just to finish off those holes now. So you do all 9. You can do more if you want to sew more. You could, as a lot of people do 5, but honestly, I can't be bothered. I always just do 3. Works perfectly for me. I've never had anything fall out or whatever. So I like to keep things simple. So when it comes to my signatures, they get treated basically the same way, except we're only going to put in 3 single holes. And what I do when I start, I've pressed them all really well down and got them nicely together. Then, without opening them fully, I clamp the top of the left side and I clamp the bottom of the right side, just to hold everything in place. And I find by doing this, I end up with the holes actually going through the center line. Otherwise, it tends to come out at an odd angle. Then I just pop my little mask that I made, my little guide strip there, pop it in, and then before you press, I like to check that I've got it in the right spot. Then I hold the book up. Some people have these special holders, that hold the papers in place. I don't have one of those. To me, it's just something that takes up a lot of space. I don't need it. If you pop your hole through on an angle like this, I always find it goes nicely through to the back page on the spine exactly where you want it. I don't know why, but if I try and do it with my papers laid out flat, I always seem to end up with it not right. So that's how I do it, and it just means you don't need another tool. You have your 3 holes there, you're ready to go. So I normally use embroidery thread. I've picked a very natural tanny brown colour here, and I tend to cut about 3 times the length of my cover. I like to have plenty left over. It makes it easy to handle, and I often like to include dangles on my journals. So I like to have bits that hang down lower, so if I want to dangle pretty things from the bottom, I can. I also use a lovely big needle I know some people think, oh my God, but you're going to make great big holes. That's not good. Honestly, it's not a problem. It all works out perfectly. It means it's easy for me to thread. I can put, because I use the embroidery thread, I use all 6 strands because it's nice and strong. Now, you can see here I'm making these tiny little arrow marks. The reason why I do that, I have this really bad habit of sewing in signatures upside down. And have a look what I just did there. I had to turn it round the right way. So instead of my arrow pointing up, I will be sewing in my signatures with the arrow pointing down. And I will remember that because I'm that silly. And I've done it many a time. The other thing is, if your signature, if the front cover doesn't have a distinctive pattern or print that, so you know it's definitely up the right way, be very careful to triple check before you sew it in. Because guess what? That bee pattern, the bees go both ways. And guess who sewed this one in the wrong way round and didn't realise it until after she'd sewn the third one in? And then it makes it quite difficult. So I do find it easiest to do the centre one first, and then the front or the back or the back or the front. It doesn't matter. But try and do the centre one first. It does make life easier. I thread it through the front hole, hold on to your thing and go down, hold on to your thread, sorry. Then I go down to the bottom or the top. It doesn't matter either way. And then I go up through there. I go all the way across to the other side and simply pull it through. And as you can see how easy it is when you have these larger holes. Honestly, it's worth it. I like to hang on to that little tail and get it out of the way so that when you are going from the back through to the front again, through that same hole you started with, if you really hang on tight to the tail and point your needle in the opposite direction, it helps it to come out without splitting the thread. It's not impossible to fix. If you do split it, you just gently use the tip of your needle and pull it through and it will split. But this way I find it tends to work very easily without splitting it. Then you just pull it tight so that it's nice and firm. Don't pull so tight that you tear the paper, but you want it firm. I then slip it underneath one of the threads. Then I just give it one more gentle pull and I simply tie it in a knot. That's it. It's all done. Except, as I said, I damn well put that one in upside down. I could not believe it after I think I'm being so clever and making sure I got it right. It is ridiculous how easy it is to accidentally sew them in the wrong way. So I just snipped it out and I redid it and all was well. So I'm not going to make you watch me doing the others. I think you can figure that one out. And here's my journal all done. I hope you will join me on this journey. I'm really looking forward to it. Until next time, stay safe and stay healthy. And bye for now.